Girls und Panzer. Interesting show. I like the concept. It seems like there's a whole genre of anime that are centered around World War II stuff because
Uh,
there seems to be a lot of them. A lot.
yeah, because it's what
Even
Evil
the one you
Tanya,
really like,
Evil.
you like is about like isn't it also about like tanks and
Which one is it?
uh it's the one you were talking about a lot. I think it's another show about girls with tanks and World War II stuff or
I thought it
um
was this one specifically though.
no. This was something else. Had been talking about it for a while. It wasn't Girls Doing Panzer because this is
Without any more hint than that, and it doesn't immediately jump to my mind. I'm not real sure.
I'm almost positive that's not the one that you were talking about.
I know there's some other like war related stuff. You got Evil Tanya, you've got Gate. Well, Gate's more modern
You got that
military,
one
but
I tagged you in, which is a military one as well. Season 2 is coming out next year for it. It was I tagged you in it yesterday. I
you
was
tagged
like,
me in a
this
lot of
is
stuff.
up your alley. Hey, you tagged me in a lot of stuff too.
Yeah, I know, but it's.
I remember everything you tagged me in though.
I was gonna try to pull it up real quick.
Yeah, if you can. But that one looks interesting too. She wore like a World War something outfit on the cover of it, so it was obviously military related in some aspect. But yeah, though, I mean, like this seems to be a whole genre, and my kind of thoughts was very slow pace for the first episode, very slow. Not much happens. I know they're trying to do the build up of the characters and stuff. And that's generally how a lot of anime go. Not a lot happened in the first episode, so I was just like, oh, okay, it's cool. You're in the school with the girls. By the end of it, you learn that the one girl is getting signed up to be in tankery. And then episode 2 was good as well. By the end of episode 2, they found a tank. They were assigned their tank roles. So this was like about to get into probably practice with the tanks, which
I believe.
did
Yeah, I
not.
believe episode 3 is because it. What the
Because
first episode's.
episode 3 and it hadn't started yet.
Yeah, so
So
like episode 1 starts off with like a snapshot to episode 4, the first actual like school on stool tank battle with the English school. And then, then the rest of episode 1 and 2 is just essentially setting up the overall plot, finding the tanks that they're going to use, and they find more tanks kind of later on. Episode 3 kind of gets into their first little scuffle because Miho, she's the main character that we follow. She transferred from another school that is much more that her family is really prevalent in when it comes to tank. They call it tankery at least in the anime, but in the movies and subsequent the DOS finale movies, they actually call it Senshido because there's no real direct translation for Senshido. That's what the sport's called in the Japanese one. But she comes from her sister and her mom come from the German school.
okay.
Yeah, sorry, I had a brain fart. I had to pull up real quick. Kuramori Mine is like the school based off of like the Germans in World War II. Ori, they use like half their tanks are Germans. They've got like some American and I think eventually they get a French tank. But the main schools that we see, at least in the first 12 episodes, it's St. Gloriana's, which what we first saw in the first episode, and you will see in the full battle in the 4th episode. That's the English school. You've got Saunders, which is the American school. Obviously, Kuramori Mine is the German school. And I believe Anzio is technically mentioned in this show, but there's an actual proper OVA because it kind of like ran out of time to do that battle. That's the
much to watch for this.
Yeah, it's the Italian
There's
school.
a movie, there's the OVA.
Yeah, and then you have the Pravda school, which is the Russian school. There's a lot more schools that show up later because it's the first 12, which it kind of pretty sure it was they thought it was just gonna be like a one-off. Not a lot of money. I wholesale don't believe they thought this show was gonna blow up the way it actually did. It got really popular because when you get to the movie, which takes place after the show, it's a full 2-hour movie and maybe 20 to 25 minutes of it is actual plot. The rest is just the actual tank battles.
How much have you watched?
I've watched the whole series, the movie, and the first 3 of the DOS finale. Last year, we got the 4th episode of the DOS finale. I believe it was in the fall of last year. And at the time when I was fully watching through everything, it hadn't had a proper dub or any kind of proper release in the US because it was still in Japanese theaters. I believe it at least has a proper subtitle, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But
Gotcha.
essentially, there's 4 of what they said they're planned. It's 6 for the DOS finale that's out right now, and that's crazy because this show started airing back in 2012 when the show first aired.
2012, yeah.
It got really popular because the more you watch the show, especially if you watch really detailed, obviously these are all based after World War II schools. Outside of Ori, our main, which is like a bunch of different schools. Each school is based off an actual country in World War II, and they use World War II era tanks that were either used in the war or at the very least designed during the war. Because it's not too much of a spoiler, but Kurumori Mine uses the Mouse tank, which never really actually saw any combat. From the
combat.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it didn't see any combat in the world. It's a super heavy, wholesale, too slow, too impractical of a tank.
That's funny.
Yeah, but once you get to the movie, we get both I believe it's the Finnish school, which is Jakusoda High School, and then Chihitan in the movie, which is based off of the Japanese in World War II. And obviously very, very different tanks. And they also, a lot of these schools, both in the movies and in the TV show, they take a lot of their inspiration for how countries would act. I think there's a word for it I'm just blanking on. You know what I'm thinking of, right? Where you
yeah.
You know the word?
No.
I feel like such an idiot.
No,
but
I feel like an idiot too, because I should know as well.
Yeah.
Dang it, Mark.
Yeah, I'm bad. But they take inspiration, like with Pravda, they fight how the Russians do in different Russian tactics and stuff like that.
Yeah, I gotta tell you something.
Yeah.
I am a Russian spy.
No Russian. There's an actual reference. Because it's Katusha as the head girl for Pravda in the movie early on. 2 of her teammates are speaking in actual Russian, both in the English and in the Japanese dub. And at least in the English dub, he's like, Clara and something else. It's like no speaking Russian on the battlefield, and it's the joke. No Russian. The meme from Call of Duty.
Yeah.
You said that, and I thought it was really funny.
That's pretty funny.
But there's a lot of schools, and they fight like you see it in the movie, the Japanese school. They fight like the whole bonsai charge style. They kind of make fun of themselves and stuff like that. The Americans just kind of send everything at once. The Germans, they reference it in the show later, and I think it's like the last 2 episodes when they're fighting the German school. They're like, what? They came through the forest, fight. They're essentially fighting the way they did and stuff like that. A lot of references.
I find weird about the show. I guess maybe I just don't get it. I don't understand the all girls only concept. Like, what is there? Is there a reason behind that? Like, why is it girls only?
It's just
because they talk about guys in the series. I remember one of them were talking about a joke about a blowjob in episode 2.
I don't know if it was a blowjob joke straight up, but
I'm pretty sure it was. You don't even know what to do with the guy. And then something about the mouth.
Well, I mean, to be fair,
they could have been talking about kissing, but that's not the way I took it.
I mean, these are like high school girls, so they're puberty.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, why do the girls always have to be in high school?
That's just an anime trope. Like a lot of kids a lot of shows have that trope.
I just don't get it, because here's one thing I was thinking about the other day. This is totally off topic, but Japanese girls are typically very traditional. Right.
I mean, that's that country as a whole.
Yeah. No. Well, like Japanese women are extra traditional. Like they're nothing like an anime girl, right? Like that is not what.
Yeah, but if you've watched enough anime, it's a show. It's not reality.
Like I know people. I know someone directly is married to a Japanese woman. She's very traditional. Like, so traditional of, to the point of staying at home, taking care of the kids. And completely family oriented, both with her family or direct family, like her, extended family, all that stuff. It's just very traditional, very family oriented, very not the way the Japanese girls are. Or Japanese anime girls, sorry. I always found that kind of funny. It seems kind of weird. It's like, do Japanese girls even watch anime?
Oh, 100% they do.
Maybe
not shows like this, but
exact opposite of how these.
Well, to be fair, they're
but yet they're so perverted.
I remember what I was trying. I don't know. I couldn't think of it. A lot of these characters, they act like the stereotypes of the countries they're representing. So the
Yeah,
American
but most
school
of them
is
are still
loud and
representing
boisterous.
Japan.
Well, technically, all these girls are Japanese, even though their names don't make sense. They're all technically Japanese. All these schools are in Japan, but it's a show. There's a series of disbelief because early on they're like, "How is this safe?" They're
I
like,
get that.
"Oh no, the tanks have carbon in them. You're fine. Almost nobody ever dies in the show." They're like, the show recognizes the absurdity and just like, yeah, we know. We're just gonna hand wave it away
Definitely does.
because
It plays into that, which I kind of like. But no, overall, like with the 2 episodes I watched and the minimal of episode 3, before I had to stop. I mean, I thought it was pretty good. Like it was interesting. Like you said, the first episode was pretty bland because it had to build up like sort of what was happening.
yeah, it's
and
introducing you to the characters and just kind of setting
yeah,
everything up.
nothing happened there other than that, the introduction of the characters, which is to be expected. It's episode 1. By episode 2, you knew the characters a little bit more already. You obviously get the tankery stuff that happens. You meet the other girls in the school that are on the student council or whatever. Which another thing I found very weird is that the student council president has a office, but there's no adults.
I mean, they're there. But it's just a student council office.
But it's like the student council is in control. Like what? Like they hold this giant meeting in the auditorium. They make everybody meet there, and they're telling them what they're going to do.
Yeah, they're like, hey, this is
Essentially.
tankery. If you do this, it'll make you a better worker, a better mother, a better parent, something else. Boys will fall at your feet because you fighting tanks. I mean, I don't know if this was real. Probably would be like that.
I mean, yeah, true.
I mean, it's just an absurdity. It's just cute. The idea concept.
Very over the top. Very
cute girls doing cute things is
of
kind of what
course.
the show feeds into.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, because like they take a bunch of stuff. There's girls from the volleyball club. They're in their own tank. You've got the student council. You've got the freshmen. You've got the history club. And the history club is really notorious about making a lot of references in this show. Historical references based off like the situation they're in and how that might relate to it, or different names from different characters of the history or in World War II specifically. Because early on, I think it's in the first episode when Miho meets both Sayori and Hana, and like, hey, let's go eat lunch, and they're kind of talking to her. Because I don't know who tells you like, oh, hey, this is my birth date. I think that's another anime thing. Same with blood type. But if you didn't catch the reference, a lot of people did. If you've never watched like Potential History, he does like a wholesale breakdown on the whole seasons, whole season, cool. The first movie, like every single major reference that you can find from the tanks to stuff. Because I didn't know this until I watched his YouTube video on it. And these came out a few years ago, like 5-6 years ago, maybe at this point. Because Sayori, her birthday's June 22nd. That's a reference for the start of Operation Barbarossa in World War II.
Yeah.
And then Hana, she says her birthday's December 16th. That's the day that the Battle of the Bulge kicked off. So there's like a lot of really subtle references in the show sometimes, or more explicit. Do you collect
World War II or what's the word I'm thinking of?
Paraphernalia? I don't know if that's the right word. Not really. Like I love war. I love just general history, especially war history. So like one of those other people that show definitely like, I love tanks, love history. Like it's a best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Otherwise I wouldn't really care because the show definitely follows the template of a lot of sports anime. 100% how it's structured. Because the bulk of the show from like episode, I think from episode,
Tankery's a game.
Yeah, like basketball, volleyball. It uses a lot of those tropes, but throws a lot of stuff in.
They do this in real life, right? Like this is a real life thing that they do.
Yeah,
you can take tankery classes and play it as sport.
Yeah, man, totally.
No, I'm serious.
What, like World of War tanks or something like that?
A lot of schools have tank teams.
I don't know if I'd believe you if you're just yanking my chain.
You probably shouldn't.
I'm like, you can learn to tank, but that's an actual that's like a military thing. It's not as safe. I heard
this story the other day about there's this girl I know that she had a crazy grandma. Her husband had a lot of money, so they would buy like the craziest, most absurd stuff, and they literally bought a tank, and they bought it before you had to have a license to own such a thing, right? Like, because now you have to have like a specialized license to own something like that. But at this point in time, she did not. She lived in Kentucky. They bought a tank and they would ride it up and down the street. And she was like like 8 years old or something. Her grandma had a freaking tank, and her husband was like a World War I and World War II enthusiast. So he collected like even like toy army men and stuff like that. Like he was in the military collecting all that stuff. He would have like little sets, dioramas of army men set up and stuff like that. But they bought a freaking tank, man. They owned a tank for like 10 years, and you have to have a license for it at the time. Bought it at auction, didn't need a license.
I mean, you don't have like shells or anything, so you can't really do anything with it. It's just you just have a tank.
Oh man, you can make that usable for sure.
Yeah, and how are you gonna get ammunition for it? Like that's the problem. Like driving it's fine, but actually being able to shoot
you can get the tank, you can get ammunition. Are you kidding me?
The
At
shells
that point in time,
aren't.
before
Even back then, those shells wouldn't have. Even if you could, like, there was no problem. That's a lot of money on top of the tank itself.
they had a lot of money. They bought a tank for 10 G's.
I mean, $10,000. You can get a car for $10,000. To be fair, though, like that's not the worst. But like, yeah, okay, here's an $800,
like 1997, so.
50-pound artillery shell, essentially.